my son woke me up. And he's like, Mom, wake up. Daddy won't wake up. He's really cold and he has blood coming out of his nose. I grabbed my little one. She was with my son next to me.
Yeah.
Ran downstairs as I'm calling 911. As we were running to my neighbors, my son looked back at me and he just was like, please tell me my best friend isn't gone. And I just threw my kids and I just grabbed her by her shirt and I was like, he's not breathing. The ambulance got there really quick. I was just sitting on my front porch and my neighbor came out as they're walking in and she's like, sorry. I was like, okay, we have to tell the kids. My oldest one, she was with my mom. I just remember her running down the street, like, because there were so many cars. There was ambulance, fire trucks, CSI, coroner. Hardest for me to tell my 5-year-old at the time because she didn't understand, like, what death was. I just said that Daddy's in heaven. And she's like, well, can we go visit him there? The feeling for me is so unexplainable, other than I felt like I died too.
What would you say to somebody that's struggling with drug addiction?
It's not worth it. The hole that you will leave in someone's life is bigger than you can ever imagine because you're leaving behind a wife, a girlfriend, your parents, and most of all, if you have children, your other half is going to have to explain to them what really took you out one day.
Britt, welcome to the Roller Coaster Podcast.
Hi.
Thanks for making the 40-minute jaunt out from Vegas on the puddle jumper to get here.
Right.
I appreciate you coming on. Britt and I met a few weeks ago when I heard about her story, and for those who follow the show, they know that we've had a few guests on who have had some pretty traumatic experiences, to say the least, specifically with losing a spouse. And so we're going to talk about your story today, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
I want to kick the episode off really with you describing the events of, sort of what led up to the moment when you found out that your husband had passed away, and take us through that journey. And then I think there's going to be a lot to unpack there.
So, he passed away Monday. So leading up to that, he had just had back surgery, like a double spinal fusion. He's a driver for UPS, so they all have a ton of injury. And this guy came over to our house, which I've never liked. It was a friend of his, and anytime he came around, it was never good. So I asked my kids, I'm like, where's Daddy? He's like a little old man walking with a walker, and they're like, oh, he's outside. So I look on my cameras, I go out there, and I instantly get, upset. I'm like, what are you doing here? And I just knew. So that night, I ended up caving, and he wanted me to talk to his friend. He was trying to get his friend to go to rehab. And we all sat in my living room and cried. And my husband, I was with him for 17 years, probably seen him cry 5 times. So we were talking to his friend, and they were, he was like, your kids don't have to see what mine have seen. Like, you need to get it together. And that was Friday. Saturday, I went to work. Sunday, I was at work. He came to the salon. He was finally getting out of the house. He sat at my work for a few hours with my son in the back room on YouTube because they both were into baseball, so they do these baseball card things. And then he left with my 2 younger ones, went home. I was still with my best friend at the salon doing her hair till about 11:30. And he was like, hey, Devin wants to go get a sobriety tattoo. He's going to leave for rehab this week. Do you care if I go? And I was like, do you think you're strong enough? Because he'd been sober for a while. And he said, yeah. I said, okay. And so they went, and this is, again, like midnight at this time. And in Vegas, you can get tattoos all hours of the night. Yeah. I said, just please come home at a decent time. So 3:30 rolls around, and I'm like texting him like, this always happens. Like, now I'm freaking out. Came home perfectly fine, sober. I actually fell asleep on the couch, and he got his walker when he came in the house, and it caught the tile, and he tripped and spilled his drink on me. And that's what woke me up. So I was like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, are you sure? And then like I could tell instantly if he was or not. He was fine. So I went upstairs. We'd been sleeping on the couch for almost 2 weeks together. It's like a huge couch, and he couldn't sleep flat in the bed from his surgery. And so I went upstairs. He came upstairs. He took his contacts out, changed his clothes. At the time, I didn't realize that he changed his clothes, and that will tie into the story later. So this is now like 4 o'clock in the morning, Monday. He said, this is what gets me. He's like, I just really wanted you to lay with me tonight. And I'm like, well, the whole other side of the couch is wet, so I'm just going to sleep upstairs tonight. It's the first time I hadn't slept with him. And he said, okay. And I said, I love you. And he's like, I love you. And he gave me a kiss. And I was like, I'll see you in the morning. And then that was the last time I seen him alive. So I'm sleeping. I don't remember what time it was. Again, we went to bed late, so it was probably like around 9, 10, maybe 11. My son woke me up frantically, like shaking me. And he's like, Mom, wake up. Daddy won't wake up. He's really cold and he has blood coming out of his nose. So that is how I instantly knew. I grabbed my phone. My little one, she was with my son next to me at the bed. I ran downstairs. The second that he said he was cold, like I just knew.
Yeah.
And ran downstairs as I'm calling 911. And my couch is, I couldn't go to the front of the couch because the way he was laying, he was facing the TV. So I ran behind the back and I was just shaking him but the way that he was sleeping, his hand didn't look right because he was kind of like this, you know? And so I grabbed my kids. I ran out the front door. I ran to my neighbor's and I about kicked her door in. We're really close to them. They're family to us. I was banging on the door and I just threw my kids in and I just grabbed her by her shirt and I was like, he's not breathing. She came in, ran in the house with me. I hand her my phone and I stand at the front door because I'm like scared, like I knew, but I didn't know, you know. And she's yelling for me to come in and she's like, I need you to help me roll him over on his back. Like they want us to try CPR. So we're trying to roll him over. But as we're trying to roll him over, he was already starting to go stiff. So I just ran out of the house. By that time, like the ambulance got there really quick. I was just sitting on my front porch and my neighbor came out as they're walking in and she's like, sorry. I don't really remember that day much, but I just was screaming. My two little ones still didn't know. As we were running to my neighbors, my son looked back at me and he just was like, please tell me my best friend isn't gone. So they were sitting in the house for an hour with my neighbor probably. And my son was just crying and screaming like he wanted to know what happened. By this time, I just was like, I was like covered in bruises because I had literally like fell into the rocks. My cousin showed up. I don't know how she found out. There was like 50 people at my house within an hour. I called one of my good friends at work. I don't know why she was the first person I called, maybe because I was thinking I had to get to work. And I called her and she said I was just screaming. She couldn't understand. So she sent my boss to my house. And I was like, okay, we have to tell the kids. My daughter wasn't with me at the time, my oldest one. She was with my mom, which was the absolute worst person for her to be with in a moment like this. Yeah. My neighbor called my mom, and I didn't find this out till later, and said, I need you to keep it together. She's not the kind of person that can, but you need to get Izzy home now. Frank passed away. So that whole car ride from my mom's to my house, my daughter didn't know what was going on. She called my father-in-law. And then when she came, I just remember her running down the street, like, because there were so many cars. There was ambulance, fire trucks, CSI, the coroner. There was, like I said, so many people showed up at my house instantly. Like, neighbors said that they were like, I'll never forget the blood-curdling screams that came from you outside your house that day. So there was just so much going on. And my daughter was just trying to get in the front door because she wanted to see her dad. And I was like, we need to go get Gio and Frankie Rose. So my cousin or someone went to go grab Gio first. And I just knelt down and told him, which was so hard, but it was hardest for me to tell my 5-year-old at the time. Because she didn't understand, like, what death was, you know. I just said, that daddy's in heaven. And she's like, well, can we go visit him there? So I feel like telling her was so hard because she was so young. So that was, like, the event that was that day. They let us go in and say goodbye. But I didn't let my kids. So me and my father-in-law went in. We were in there for a while, as long as they would let us, basically. And then they took him, and I gave them his phone because he has a history with addiction. And I had a feeling, but I didn't want to think that's what it was because of who he hung out with that weekend.
Yeah.
We thought maybe it was a blood clot. Like, he just had spinal surgery. You know, maybe he had an aneurysm. And that Friday before he died, he said, for the first time in so long, I'm finally proud of myself. And he was so strong. And so I didn't think it was that, but it was in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
You know? And that is how it happened.
What's the feeling like when they take him away and then he's just no longer there? Like, how do you describe that?
So I'm like a super big overthinker. Like, I will Google the weirdest stuff. Like, I want to know the details of everything. And I wanted to see them take him away. But my cousin would not let me. And looking back now, I'm thankful that she didn't. She's like, you don't want to see him go in a black body bag.
Your last memory is, yeah.
My last memory of him at home is on my couch, passed away. Yeah. I didn't see the blood. He had no vomit or anything else, thank God. But because I was trying to wake him up from the back, because I couldn't go look at his face. So when I went in to say goodbye, when the coroners, they had wiped his face off and rolled him over on his back and put a blanket over him and stuff already. So that is how I seen him last. The feeling for me is so unexplainable. Other than I felt like I died too. I felt like, you know, in movies when something bad happens or someone's kid gets taken and they're spinning around and everything's blurry in the park. You know, you see that all the time. Yeah. That is what I felt like. And 1 minute I would be crying. 1 minute I would be staring off. And the next I would literally be screaming to the top of my lungs and I would just fall out. And it didn't matter who was there. Like, for months I was like that.
Months.
My therapist that I went to diagnosed me with like a severe grief depression. Like, I had a lot of PTSD. Yeah. From the stuff prior to him passing, dealing with, like, his addiction. And then, getting woken up like that, I guess you could call it a little bit like sleep anxiety. I couldn't sleep. Like, I would stay up until my body crashed because I was so scared to go to sleep. Because I was dreaming and crying in my sleep. I wasn't alone for 3 months. There was someone at my house at all times. Like, I literally, like, one of his best friends stayed with me, made sure that, like, I was eating. Like, I literally would sit on my couch in the same spot for days and get up and try to function with my kids a minute. I wouldn't open the blinds. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. Like, I was throwing up because I was so anxious. I got down to like 96 pounds, 97 pounds. My hair was falling out. Like, I literally was paralyzed. You know, I was with him for so long. So the feeling of him not being there, I felt like I didn't know who I was without him. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like he was like the breath in my lungs. But I somehow just managed to have like a little gasp every day to let my kids know that I was still there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I talked to Mason about this on the podcast, who we talked about a little bit. Mason Sawyer, who's I think maybe still the most downloaded, watched episode that we've ever done on the podcast. And I still get messages about that podcast. And you know, I asked him the question, like, because it's hard listening to this and not immediately going into the what if that was me situation. With Mason, it was visualizing me losing my wife, which I nearly did, right?
Right.
And with you, it's visualizing me being the one on the couch, dead, and my wife being in your shoes, and my son saying, did I lose my best friend, right? Like, it's... So I immediately go there, and I just think, if I was the one, if I was in your shoes, like, it would be hard to want to continue, right? So, you know, Mason really explained that for him, the reason why he didn't commit suicide, kill himself, was because Blue, his son. But he said even that was almost not enough many times, right? So is that the same with you? Like, how do you, I mean, how have you just carried on?
I can relate to that, what Mason said. I would stand in my kitchen facing away from my kids. I'd turn my back to the couch and I would just stand there and think, like, how can I die today without killing myself? Because I never really wanted to kill myself. I just didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And then I would turn around and look at my couch with my 3 babies and like, that's fucked up. I'm all they have, you know? And they were my why. Like, they were my why I pushed myself the tiny bit that I could every single day, you know? And everybody, you know, when you lose a spouse, people don't really realize, like, you lose so much more than just your spouse. Like, you lose, like, a version of your children, like a version of yourself. People tell you, like, you need to get it together, like, you have kids to live for. And yeah, that's true, but, like, when you're in such a sad, broken, dark place, it's really hard to sometimes look at your children because they're sad. And so you're trying to manage your own grief and grief and sadness. And not only that, you're trying to manage 3 little innocent humans. Yeah. So it's so much more than that, you know? I used to pray, like, I want to go to sleep and not wake up. And then on the flip side, I'm like, my kids woke up to their dad not doing that. Oh. So, like, all the thoughts were just, like, you know, a little, they were pretty deep like that. I just didn't want to be here, but I never thought about like actually really doing something, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things you shared was the outpouring of, I don't know if it was love or if it was just support from the community, from people that cared about you. Like how important was that, having just people around you that cared? Do you feel like you had that?
Yeah. I really found out who my tribe was.
Yeah.
And I call them my tribe because people that you think are going to be there are not. And people that you wouldn't imagine to show up for you in such a sad time do. And what I really learned also was people can only show up as much as they can. I felt bitter and let down by a lot of people. But now that I'm through a lot of that, I look back and like, I was hard to be around.
Yeah.
It was hard to be around my kids. It's hard for me to be around my kids because it was so much sadness. So, you know, people created a GoFundMe, which I was like, absolutely not. Because all I could think about was when you scroll Facebook, you see someone's, and then I'm like, that's mine now. You know, people, I didn't cook or anything for 3 or 4 months, like meals. They had this meal train going forever. I had a client, I've been doing his hair for years. He's like, how can I help you? I've never been one to ask for help. I'll be blue in the face before I ask for help. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, how much is your mortgage? And I told him, he's like, all right, I'm going to pay your mortgage for 6 months. Like, he was the reason why I didn't lose my house. You know?
Just helped you get through that.
And I never in a million years would have thought like that somebody would offer that, you know? My family, my cousins and like my grandparents and my uncle and that part of my family were great. My immediate family sucks. My mom is in recovery, but she's very toxic and very narcissistic. I love her. She didn't talk to me for 4 months after my husband died. And I just needed my mom. My brother and I had a falling out when my husband died as well. And I didn't talk to him for 6 months. Like, the people that I thought would be there, my mom and my brother, were not. People like my clients were bringing me dinner and making sure that I took a shower.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't showering. I didn't care. Like, the one thing that I did was brush my teeth. Like, I'm a crazy teeth person. But, you know, like, my one client came over, just showed up, and she's like, are you okay? I'm like, no, it's a stupid question. She's like, went up in my room, she started my shower. She's like, get the hell in the shower right now. She's like, I was here like a week ago, and you're wearing the same clothes. I'm like, I know. Like, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my support was so overwhelming, but so beautiful. And I felt like if I didn't have that, I would not have made it through.
Britt, how does somebody, I love the words you used in Find Your Tribe. Like, how does somebody find their tribe without going through what you went through, right? Just people living with their own traumas, their own ups and downs, going through life. They probably think they know who's in their corner, but they really probably really don't, right? So do you have any like advice for how do you cut through the grass to figure out like who's really my people?
So now that I'm very firm with my boundaries and I practice self-love all the time, I think you really need to have self-love and boundaries and be firm in those to be able to choose your tribe if you weren't going through something like I went through.
Yeah.
It is like they say, like, you are what you eat. And it's so true because you have to surround yourself with people that treat you with grace If you see someone that is treating a server horrible, that's a sign, I feel like, that that's not a good person for your tribe. Like, all of my girls that I've been friends with for years, the one thing that I feel like we all have in common, in my tribe, I mean like my really good group of girlfriends, like, they're the girls that are complimenting the other girls in the bathroom, or, you know, asking how their day was, but really saying like, hey, are you okay? And, you know, yeah, no, like, are you okay? Like, those are the girls that I have in my tribe.
Yeah.
So I think when you're choosing your tribe or trying to find it, like, those are the little tiny things that you need to look for in people, because those are the things that matter in the biggest times of your life.
You know what one I talk about a lot, Brett, is, and I preach from the mountaintops to my audience that they have to do this. It's so important. Is we've gotten away, I think, a little bit societally of just checking in to check in, just to say hello, just to see how things are going, right? It's like everything feels so transactional now that anytime somebody calls me, in most cases, except a few people, I'm like, oh, I wonder what they need. I'm going to take it. It's my boy. It's my girl. Whatever. I'm going to take it. But it's always, hey, man, I got a question. Or, hey, man, are you going to go to this thing with us? Or, hey, are we...
Like, not genuinely asking how you are without having a motive.
So I do this several times a week. Usually it's time when I'm driving in the car. I'm not going to just sit there and listen to stuff. I'd rather be like checking in on my people. And my people love this. They're like, hey, man, what's up? I'm like, hey, how are you? They're good. I'm like, that's all. You sure you're good? You good? Yeah, I'm good. Cool. All right, man. See ya. And they're like, what was that? But they've gotten used to it. Now they're like, oh, you just checking in? I'm like, yeah, you're good? You sure? Actually, man, no, man. I need to talk to somebody about something. Let me tell you what happened last night. It's tough. Just listen, you know. They would have never talked to anybody about it if I didn't check in.
It's so important.
Right?
I feel like people need to feel seen and heard. And that was something that I didn't feel a lot in my life. And I feel that more than ever now.
Yeah.
And going through that with him. And that is just a really fulfilling, like, thing, because, like you said, people are just like, hey, what's up? How are you? Okay, cool. People really were like checking in, you know?
Yeah. You talked about this struggle that you have asking for help. I think most people struggle with this. Truly. But I think most people shouldn't struggle with this. I think it's, I think once you realize that you can be, it doesn't mean you're broken or you're a bad person or you're a fill in the blank if you ask for help, right? Have you changed your tone on that? Like, have you gotten better at being able to just let people know when you need some support? Yeah.
The thing that I needed was a safe place to go and turn. And I have a lot of those places now. So, you know, I grew up with a lot of childhood trauma. I was fending for myself. There's a ton of abuse. So I just learned to be quiet. I learned to not ask. I learned to figure it out. Like, that's what I was always told growing up, was like, we'll figure it out. Like,
Yeah.
I graduated and I was on my own. The only reason I got to go to beauty school was because my mom's ex-husband's mom, who was like a grandmother to me, paid for me to go to beauty school. My parents were like, if you're not going to go to college, we're not going to pay for you to go to beauty school. I was like, okay. She paid for me to go. I never, not one time, have been able to turn to my parents and say, I need help. So that's kind of where that comes from. Like I've always had to do it on my own. Nothing that I've ever had was given to me. I've worked my ass off my whole life. I built my career by the time I had a 2-year plan. I was like, by the time I'm 20 or 21 years old, I'm going to make $80,000 a year. Did it. When I'm 23, I want to be married. Did it. I want to have my first baby. Did it. Like I had every single thing that I ever wanted. And then like, you know, I was making 6 figures a year 5 years into my career. And then it just went up, and then COVID, and then it went back up, and it was great. And for me, like that was, other than being a mom, was my biggest accomplishment, because my parents never believed I was going to do good in doing hair. They're like, you're going to make $10 an hour. I'm like, here, you guys. Like, and then they were like, doing hair.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. So, you know, I grew up seeing everything I didn't want to be, and grew up having to fight for everything that I had. So when I started building a life for myself, my husband, and my kids, I fought like hell to make sure that we had like a comfortable lifestyle. I made my own schedule. I'm at every dance sport, every baseball game. You know, we go on vacations. We own a house. Like there were things that like I lived in apartment to an apartment to an apartment. I wanted stability for them. So Frank and I built that.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about your hair and makeup business. I actually have a real question around this. I do care. I know I'm a man's man, but I do care. Before we get there, you know, there's probably a lot of people listening to this who are living with a boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse that has addiction, right? You know, for somebody who hasn't, I have a lot of questions. Like why? Like why would you do that? Why would you stay with a person who's got this addiction, right? And I know it's not that easy. So can you help, you know, maybe those who don't understand reconcile with like, you love this person, what are you going to do? But they do have a serious addiction, right? That could lead to really bad consequences in the future or even death. But then also for people who are living with somebody who has addiction, like do you have advice for those people too?
So I was with him, like I said, for 17 years. I was extremely codependent. So when you're with an addict, you become just as sick as they are.
Yeah.
But you feel everything because you're sober. Like I've never struggled with addiction personally. So I think of like, I would say to him, like, why? Why do you keep doing this? Why aren't we enough? You have babies. Like, the only way, I mean, I'm glad that I stuck it through because I really fought for his life. But unless they're sober, your life is a living hell.
Oof.
And I was in that hell for a very long time, off and on. Because what I talked about before on that other podcast was, like, it's so hard to separate your love and compassion and anger and, you know, your fight to want to be with someone, because you're loving like two different people in the same body. And then they're not proud of that. They don't want to be that, but it's almost like they're so thirsty they need a drink of water, and so they take the drink of water and then they're fine. But then so many consequences come with that for them and the family.
Yeah.
I just think that I wish I would have really dove into support, like the meetings for people that, I forget, I think it's called Al-Anon or something. I didn't. I went to therapy. I've been in therapy forever. He was too.
You're saying it's like AA, but for the spouse of the
So it's
the
a support
addict.
group. I never did that. So
Yeah.
I think it might have helped me.
Yeah.
You get lost in the sauce. That's what I always say, so quick when you're with someone that has that addiction.
Yeah.
It takes 1 second and your entire life is in this shithole.
Yeah.
That it's like you either stick it out like I did and you pray and you have hope every time that they get sober. You have hope every time. And that's what really kept me around. Other than, like, I love this man. He was like my everything. He was like my puzzle piece, you know. But when they're dead, there's no more hope. And for any woman or man that is in my shoes before he passed away, that is a fear. Every single person that is with someone that has an addiction fears the worst. And eventually that is going to be the reality.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, the advice I would give, like, my kid would be like, run like the damn wind and don't look back.
Yeah.
Don't stay in something like that. It's their addiction is so much bigger than they are.
Yeah.
But when you're married to one and I was the love of my life, like, I wanted him to know that he was worth fighting for.
Yeah. That's beautiful. All right. We're going to talk about your hair and makeup business because I know that's what my audience wants. I actually, 70%, I'm looking at my assistant, 70% or so are women, 25 to 40 or something. It's like, what? Why is that? I need to maybe say some more swear words. Maybe that'll bring
I'm like
some more
a truck driver.
men in. Yeah. So, again, naive guy. I've never had my hair done, you know? Never worn makeup. So I don't know about this stuff. I mean, I do because I guess my wife, you know, I know how the bank account stuff works.
The amount of women that don't tell their husbands what their hair costs is hysterical.
I actually don't really know, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably not cheap. So what constitute, like, how do you be different with hair and makeup? Like, what do you do, Britt, that would make somebody want to go to you versus go to the other, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of hairstylists out there?
So I specialize in extensions and blondes. I do brunettes too, but
Are you wearing extensions?
Yeah.
They look very real. Is
you.
that the idea? That's what you want?
Yeah. My girlfriend Nicole does my extensions. Did them last time, but
Nice.
yeah. So I specialize in extensions in Vegas. It's dancers, cocktail waitresses, like all the industry girls. They make their money on being pretty.
Yeah.
So that's what I like to do. When I started doing hair, there wasn't a lot of people that did extensions. So I was one of them that specialized in it. And so I had a huge extension clientele. Now it's very saturated. So I still have those girls. My clients have, the ones that I didn't refer away or lose, like through losing Frank, have been so loyal. Like,
Yeah.
I've been doing hair since I was 19 behind the chair. I'm going to be 37. So I've had some of those clients since then. I think, too, like, we're fun in the salon and, like, we're, you know, like, trendy and the fashion and the makeup. And, like, I don't sugarcoat anything in the salon. Like, girls have the grossest conversations.
It's like a barbershop.
It's like that. So,
Yeah.
like, we're worse than you guys are at the barbershop, probably. And so
That'd be fun to be a fly on the wall one time.
I seriously was like, we should have, like, a live camera and just do, like, one of those things where we, like, post them all day long in the salon.
You
It'd be
should.
so funny.
That would be.
But yeah, I think just because I specialize in extensions and, like, I'm blonde, a lot of girls come to me because I have, like, blonde extensions and, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what it was.
That's cool. Do you plan on utilizing social media and, you know, some of the, you're now talking openly about this. I see you more active on there. Like, do you want to use that to grow your business?
I do. So I built my business right after MySpace went away. How long ago was that? It was Facebook.
100
Yeah.
years.
So I built my clientele before they had all of that.
Yeah.
So, which was great. But on the flip side, it's not good for me because all these young, really talented, amazing stylists, they're all about the gram and TikTok.
Yeah.
And they know how to make the reels and the videos. And I'm trying to do stuff. And I'm
you're
just
like,
okay,
Yeah.
my daughter's going to have to help me.
Yeah.
But when I was posting on social media a lot, like a few years ago, I was getting so many new clients and I didn't have room for them. So I stopped posting. And then when I would like have slow times, like I would post again.
Yeah.
And then I actually did this invention. I don't think I told you about that. It's called the Le Balayage bag. Me and another girl, we came up with this creation. And then I have a friend who's an attorney in Vegas, and he invested in it. And it was great. It was like totally kicking off. And then we had some issues with one of our partners, and that really sucked. And then there was like a 2-year lawsuit, and we won. And so we have the rights to everything now. And then COVID hit, and then we just never picked it back up. So a lot of people were coming to me because of that. Like they would see that on the Instagram.
What is it?
I'll show it to you. It's like this. So it replaces the dryer kind of where you like sit under. It's this giant like aluminum cap basically. And it's like huge. So it can go over like all these big foils when girls get their hair done.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
That
I'll show you the Instagram.
The girls know.
Yeah. We haven't been active with it. So my other partner, he's like, we should start doing this again and like do a relaunch and stuff once I get a little bit more organized, because I'm finally getting like present in the moment.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that got a lot of people's attention was when I was doing that all over the Instagram too.
That's cool. That's cool. And now with TikTok, like these unique inventions, unique products, even just single products are blowing up on places like TikTok, right? So you could probably, I think you'd kill that business.
It was really fun. Again, it took me out of my comfort zone. We did all these conventions. We were like traveling and stuff. It was vacations and fun hairstylists are wild. So it was always a good time.
Yeah.
But I was put on the spot a lot, and I had to talk in front of people, and I had to talk to people.
Yeah.
It was so scary for me, but it was really good for me. And so that was a good time.
So here you are, 1 year, 5 months after losing your husband. I didn't know you before that. I didn't know you through that, but to me, you seem like you're in a really good spot. How do you think about, when I went through my thing with my wife, there was a period of a couple of days where I was pretty sure she wasn't going to make it. And so naturally you have all kinds of thoughts, right? And one of them is like, I wonder if I would ever love again. I wonder if I would ever date again, get married again. And I think in the moment it's like, no, I could never do that, right? But as time passes, like, how do you think about that?
It's lonely. So in the beginning, I felt like that. I was like, I'm never going to get remarried. I'm a widow with 3 kids. No one's going to want to date me. And then I started getting really overwhelmed with all of the attention on my Instagram. And then I was like, this is disgusting. Like, I'm like, thanks, Frank. This is what I get to look forward to out here in the dating world. Like,
Yeah.
and I always said I wouldn't get remarried, but I'm different now, and I would. My kids and I deserve to have someone in our life. We're 35 when my husband passed away.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if that will for sure happen, but I definitely am on a completely end of the side of I would never get remarried. I'm never going to love again.
Yeah.
Because like as humans, like we like need to feel loved. And so I look forward to that actually now, a year and a half later.
Good. Good. That's beautiful. You talked about this journey to sort of, to close us out here. This is something that I care a lot about, which is, you talked about self-love. And a lot of times, you know, some of these things that are so meaningful and so critical for our life, like self-love, sounds so simple. They're so hard, and a lot of times we don't realize it until we go through some sort of event, right, where we go, wait a minute, I need to take a step back and really figure out how to love myself. Sounds like you've made a lot of just self-improvement in the last several months. What kinds of things are you doing, or content are you consuming, or programs are you a part of, or therapy, or like, what are you doing to work on yourself?
So, I've been like reading a couple books. I've really like dove into a lot of women on Instagram. Their stories, like just like someone's gonna watch mine, I watch theirs. But I was having such bad panic attacks where I was like nearly fainting and like literally throwing up. And I went on Instagram one day and I was just like hashtagging like trauma therapy, PTSD therapy, like panic attacks, like, and this guy popped up on, and I like clicked it and I was like, oh my gosh, like I followed him years ago for Frank because he specializes with addiction or trauma and PTSD. So I reached out to him, and I had a two and a half hour conversation with him on the phone, and changed my whole life. I have not fainted one time since July. He's I'll send you his Instagram. He's got an amazing story too, and I've only like had 4 really bad panic attacks since July, which was huge. I was having them a few times a week, if not every day.
Wow.
So the therapy that I did with him was life-changing. Like
In short amount of time. This wasn't like over months of working together.
Well, and then I went to California, and I did therapy there with him for like, we talked about a lot of stuff there. And but the 2.5 hour conversation was, I learned more about my nervous system.
Yeah.
And how the body responds to trauma.
Yeah.
And that was all it took for me.
Wow.
I think a lot of my self-love comes from writing a lot of my stuff down now. And really like reflecting on, like you were talking about, like, it's okay to go through these things. Like, yeah, we're broken in those moments, but like, there's silver lining in every single thing that has happened in my life, even losing my husband. And I know that sounds really crazy to say. For a lot of people, they won't get it. But it took me losing him to have to focus on myself and love myself so that I could be a better mom. Because I was so focused on him that I forgot all about me. And then I have a therapist in Vegas. She's really good. And I really I've set really firm boundaries with friends and family, and I've supported myself with those people who really check in. And I have a really good friend who has actually helped me learn to love myself again. And no one will heal you, but people can help your healing, like your friends or significant others or whatever. And that really, really helped me a lot.
It's amazing. That's beautiful. Thank you for coming on. I want to close with just one final question, which is, and I know it's a hard one because I know how serious this stuff is, but what would you say to somebody that's struggling with drug addiction?
It's not worth it. The hole that you will leave in someone's life is bigger than you can ever imagine. And you are so valued. You matter. And to lean into people that are really going to help them through. Because if I could tell my husband one more thing, and you've probably seen it on the other one, is to tell him that he's valuable, because he didn't see his value, no matter what he went through, because their addiction, they hold too much guilt to feel valuable.
Yeah.
So that would be a thing to tell somebody, because you're leaving behind a wife, a girlfriend, your parents. The hole that this has put in my father-in-law is devastating.
Yeah.
And most of all, if you have children, like, your other half is going to have to explain to them what really took you out one day.
Yeah. Well said, Britt. Thanks for coming on the roller coaster.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you to our sponsors over at Bucked Up. I love this company. I love their products, their apparel, and their supplements. Recently, they dropped the mother of all pre-workouts, Mother Bucker. This is not for the faint of heart. This will make you want to claw your face off. So don't get stuck in traffic when you're headed to the gym. I love these guys. I love this company, and I love their products. They are clearly the best tasting pre-workout on the entire market, and they're number one for a reason. Bucked Up is my favorite workout brand, hands down. And they also have my favorite apparel for working out and just for daily life. It's Lululemon-like quality, but for a fraction of the price that's affordable. So head over to their site, buckedup.com, where you can check it out. And for 20% off their entire site, use the code TylerHall20. Thank you for joining another episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. It was a pleasure to have Britt on the podcast today, and really appreciate her coming in from Vegas and sharing her story about losing her husband and how she's bounced back. The three things that I took from this episode that I want to reiterate is, number one, find your tribe of people that are actually your tribe, and really sit down and really think through who are the people in your life and who are the ones that really care and the ones that really pour love and energy into you, and hold on to those people closely. Number two, it's okay to ask for help, right? So many of us are so prideful and shameful to ask somebody for help, but it's important. And it could be small things, and it could be huge things. But if you don't ask for help when you need help, it can lead to very negative consequences. And number three, don't wait to love yourself and to focus on yourself by having to go through something like Britt went through. Okay, it's okay to start doing that today. Start loving yourself today, taking care of yourself today. And thank you for joining another episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.